Hello, it is arplenoon, also known as Phoenix. We are back with Chapter 12 of the Bridge Jumpers. This is a casual reading, so there will be no editing. It's just going to be one-off. As soon as I get this done, I'm going to upload it. If you would like to read this chapter or any of my Undertale AU content, go to archiveofourown.org, also known as AO3, and search for arplenoon. And let's get started. Summary. Pro and G race further into the palace towards the sacred grove. Air sees that PJ and Gradia have gone to face Nightmare and rushes in to help, only to get pulled away by Shattered. Prodigal couldn't be sure if the panic he felt came from himself or from Luna possessing his body, but the moment Skep disappeared from the bath hall, he felt his mind go blank. Prodigal ran out from the drain, following behind G, only compelled forward from the two monsters behind him. Suna moved swiftly through the water with ease, but she had been running to the left to assist Charlie. When Skep disappeared, it left Ray alone with Horror, and the mad skeleton didn't skip the opportunity to slice off the goat monster's hand and slash through his chest. "Ray!" Charlie screamed. G threw his hand forward, summoning a barrage of bone attacks under Horror, busting him away. As soon as the tallest skeleton pulled himself out of the pool, a wall of bones divided him from Prodigal and Color. "Look out!" said Color, yanking Prodigal away as Killer leapt, almost stabbing him with a knife. Prodigal tripped in the water, but still in Color's grip, they shortcut out of the water beside G. G seemed about to run to the injured monster, but his priority changed as soon as Prodigal fell beside him, picking him up. "Go help your brother!" Prodigal heard Sona cry, before flinging Charlie across the pool. The human fell in a hard roll before running to Ray's aid. Meanwhile, the lizard monster made her own way across the pool to fight Horror. Killer shortcut next to Prodigal, aiming to kill. Lifting his arm, G blocked the attack, sustaining a deep slice as he shoved the sands away. "Where'd that bastard go?" said Killer, before blocking an attack from Color as they pulled out their taser rods. "Get to the tree!" cried Color. A quick nod, G turned. Horror ran for Charlie and Ray behind them, axe raised high. The human was able to pull his own rods and block the attack, but the Azrael below him wasn't looking good. G set Prodigal on his feet. "Come on!" Following, Prodigal grabbed G's hand as both skeletons ran for the exit of the hall. "Go after them!" Killer's voice echoed behind. Holding tight to G's grip, Prodigal breathed heavily as they ran through the palace halls. Soul threatening to crack further, he could feel Luna struggling to hold him together. "G," Prodigal wheezed. G must have felt that he was dragging Prodigal. Stopping to pick Pro up, both of them saw Horror appear yards behind them, charging. "On my back, now!" G commanded and turned. Prodigal obeyed, climbing onto the taller skeleton's back and holding tight. Just in time, G summoned his sword again, blocking an incoming attack from the homicidal sands. Most victims Horror likely faced weren't as fearless as G. Before the sands could take another swing, G grabbed him by the throat and kicked him hard in the leg, cracking bone. An agonizing scream, Horror fell. Even Prodigal cringed in sympathy as G turned to continue running. G seemed to have their path memorized from the map in the doodle sphere. Even so, Prodigal helped him by pointing the way. They'd have to take several flights of stairs up to reach the tree grove. Prodigal worried G might lose his breath. However, he didn't seem to tire. The sound of pounding falls once again reached their ears. The bright light at the edge of the anti-void radiated off the marble. The green grove came into view, as well as the great second world tree. For all it was cracked up to be, Prodigal was surprised to find it didn't look much bigger than a normal tree. It grew from the side of the stump that remained from the first tree. Green leaves radiated vibrantly. Golden and sparkling dark apples ripened, mixed together on its branches. G stopped, finally breathing, and sounded exhausted from his trek. He leaned down to allow Prodigal to stand. That's it. That's it, right? And we need 2 golden apples, Luna's voice echoed from Prodigal's body. With a nod, Prodigal moved ahead. Wildflowers swayed in the misty breeze. The edge of the anti-void connected to reality beyond the tree, becoming the light and essence flowing from the falls. Prodigal! He heard G shout. He just grabbed onto a branch, looking back over his shoulder when something slammed hard into his throat, lifting him in the air. Choking, Prodigal gasped, struggling against an invisible claw. A giant spider with the face of Gaster appeared, a powerful and secret guardian, its physical strength greater than something Pro could fight against. Ji came charging with a roar, sword about to strike. The monster looked towards the oncoming skeleton before silence filled Prodigal's ears and a familiar white covered his eyes. He just managed to grab a small branch. He dropped hard to the ground, groaning in pain, and grabbed his throat. The anti-void surrounded him. The Gaster must have banned him. Oh no. This is Luna. Oh no, where are we? Came Luna's shaken voice. Silent, Pro looked in his hand, a golden and black apple, connected by a single stem. Needless to say, Era wasn't pleased when Nightmare's broadcast interrupted his cartoon time with Cambria. She looked at him with concern. Era closed the window so she wouldn't see any more. With a growl, he stood and pulled himself up on his strings. Play with your toys. I need to do something. Opening a smaller window, he continued to view the broadcast. Typical fear-mongering. Opening a second window, he spied on the possessed dream. You've looked better, dream boy, Era hummed. With ink missing, and now this, the last thing Era wanted was for Nightmare to be in charge. Damn it, Ink, where are you? He groaned, opening a program that scanned AUs. He wouldn't bother with the places everyone already looked. He searched where Ink was unlikely to be places he hated. As Nightmare went on about his glorious plans, Era rolled his eyes. He knew he'd be searching for Ink for hours if he managed to find him at all. When he got tired of Nightmare's ugly mug, Era switched the broadcast to reports of the Dreamfalls. The hostile takeover continued, with citizens being captured and forced to devour strange red apples, making them compliant. His search stretched into the night, pausing only to feed Cambria and put her to bed. He darkened the space with a coat before returning to his work. Era yawned. About to set the computer to auto-search, he only stayed awake when he saw PJ leading a team against the palace. He sat up at full attention. Paper jam? Oh no, what are you doing? A beep came from the scanner, the faintest reading of Ink's code. In the void. Era felt himself glitch slightly with excitement. He looked through the readings and found Ink's exact location. What was he doing down there? And since the reading showed faintly... Sorry about that. And since the reading showed faintly, it meant one of two things. Either Ink was inside an AU, or he was dying. For several minutes, at least, the reading remained stable. Era assumed this meant the former. Ink had been missing for 6 months, after all. So, as far as Era was concerned, the chatty Rainbow Man could wait. He looked back to the monitor where the battle took place. PJ and Gradient and another glitchy Sans much like himself led the charge. They fought through the waves of royal guards before coming against the palace occupants, all their eyes glowing with that eerie red. His sons seemed to handle themselves well on their own, especially Gradient, whom Era had only seen briefly before this. PJ showed his skill, but Gradient had a natural talent for the use of the magic strings and ink that left Era mesmerized. PJ and Gradient and the glitchy Sans pushed forward, leaving the rest of their team to take care of the royal family and guard. They were gunning straight for Nightmare and Dream. What are they doing? He wondered. And it appeared that Nightmare had been planning for such a move, for as soon as the 3 skeletons made their way into the throne hall, black roots snapped from the darkness behind them. The glitchy Sans was grabbed right away, bugging out. Paper Jam broke the first grip of the roots, but was quickly snagged and pulled upside down, his body wrapped up again, much like it had been before. Gradient, however, managed for slightly longer. Using his green strings to slice through the incoming roots, he came face to face with the possessed Dream. Using ink as a shield from the slice of one of Dream's swords, he wasn't fast enough to stop the strike of the pommel of the other against his skull. He too would be wrapped up in the roots. So kind of you to surrender yourselves. With ink missing and error absent, I assume no one will care if you live or die. So there's no use in keeping you around, said Nightmare as the roots tightened their grip. Oh no, he did not. At that, Error sent his strings through the spy portal, pulling himself through. Hands off my kids! Error! Paper Jam shouted before one of Nightmare's roots covered his mouth. The blue strings shot out in every direction, fed from Error's tears through his fingers. He floated in a space above them all. Nightmare grinned. Welcome, dear cousin. The weary way hath made you melancholy. Shut up. You're gonna free my sons, or else I'll tear every piece of your AU into tiny pieces. Nightmare let out a bellowing laugh. You're going to destroy the Dream Falls. Even if you did manage it, not even you would want to deal with the fallout of collapsing the reality coil itself. Error narrowed his eyes. You want to test that? Even though his eyes were glancing at PJ, his true intention was on Gradient. The boy still had hold of several green strings. Freeing him would get Error instant backup. Only a slight fault came from Nightmare's expression, but quickly disappeared. Just your sons? Then you won't mind if I killed this one, he said, pulling over the glitchy sands, wielding a stylus. Error blinked. Wait, which one is that? Not your son. He's a version of you who creates rather than destroys. Oh, that guy! Yeah, you can kill him, whatever. PJ angrily exclaimed Error's name though muffled. Ugh, fine, Error said, throwing his arms and pulling strings. The roots around Gradient were shredded. As Error hoped, the boy pulled his own string, slicing through the roots to free PJ and Template. Nightmare backed up, surely to avoid the new wave of attacks heading towards him. However, Dream shot forward, blades aiming at Error's mass. He managed to block the assault outward with his arms, but Dream flew so fast it knocked both of them through the stained glass and out into one of the gardens. Error fell in the grass, but pushed himself up. The possessed Dream hovered in the air, leaking black smoke. Those wings! I didn't know you had wings, Error grunted, the golden wings looking far too familiar. He wasted no more time, pulling strings from his tears. Well, it's just you and me, Dream Boy. You're looking rather broken up, Dream hissed, charging and swung his blades wildly. Those wings could be a coincidence, but even if they weren't, killing Dream wouldn't do Error or the multiverse as a whole any good. Error dodged and weaved through Dream's attacks before using the strings to pull himself away. Dream pursued in flight. Error swung himself towards the roof of the palace. Barely dodging the strikes of Dream's arrows, he landed hard against the stone tiling, barely saving himself in a roll. Dream came down in a hard crash. Error moved from the strike of a summoned greatsword. Pushing back to his feet, he called black bones into his hands to defend himself. I'm not really in the mood to hurt you, Dream Boy. Sure you don't want to talk it out this time? Never. Prepare to die. Whoa, you got something stuck in your throat there, buddy, he started before Dream flew at him with a series of blows. Arrow wasn't used to melee combat. It exhausted him quickly, and he barely kept the blades from reaching his mass. How can I prepare when you keep attacking me? He'd been pushed to the edge of the roof, Error's hearing filled with the sound of the pounding waterfalls below. But unlike most mortals, he had no fear of the fall. Leaping back, Error hoped it would get him away from the Golden Prince enough to take offense, but Dream dove after him. Now you're stalking me nearly as bad as ink does, cried Error. With one hand, he threw strings to latch onto one of the bridges dividing the falls. With the other, he attempted to catch Dream in his grasp. Dream cut through the strings and plummeted into him. Error felt the blade strike through his rib cage, scratching bone and barely missing his soul. Even with gasping Even while gasping for breath, Era latched his left hand onto Dream's ropes, using the other to tangle them both in the strings. Like flies caught in a web, they came to a hard stop, hanging in the air. Weapons disappearing, Dream kicked and attempted to free his arms from around the glitchy skeleton. What's the problem? I was starting to think you liked me, Era smirked before coughing. Unlike Dream, Era was an expert at slipping himself out of such a mess. He didn't need Dream getting free too soon, so Era pulled more strings, tying the prince's hands behind his back. Era hung by his threads and saluted. Catch you later, Dream Boy. The possessed Dream roared, but Era ignored his cries. In several minutes, he pulled himself back up to the palace and swung in through the broken window. But the throne room stood silent and empty. Ah, hell, where are they now?